Hi, I'm Mark Tyrrell of Uncommon Knowledge and hypnosisdownloads.com, and welcome to Overcome Phobia of Being Alone. 5 tips to being happy with your own company. Being alone can be a pleasure, a self-imposed state induced by social anxiety, or enough to cause a fear amounting to phobia, sometimes called monophobia, so bad that it drives people to do anything other than spend time alone. The person who's terrified of being alone feels fundamentally unsafe and unable to look after themselves. And this can be a huge problem, of course. Other people are related to as almost surrogate parents rather than, say, romantic partners. Now, we all have a need to connect to other people, to feel a sense of togetherness or intimacy, or to feel connected to a community. And some of us have a greater need to be with others than other people do. But we all share this basic human drive to some extent. And for some, the need to be around others, perhaps even around one specific safe person, becomes overwhelming. The fact is, if we feel we can't ever spend time alone, then we become extremely dependent. This video is about helping you regain some independence and even, dare I say, start to enjoy, or at least tolerate, being on your own sometimes. So how does phobia of being alone affect you? Well, phobia of being by yourself, of course, starts to mess with your life and can also disrupt the lives of other people. Being alone phobia, as Suzette, a client of mine, called it, was messing with her life. And she said, "I hate to ever be alone. When it gets really bad, I insist," and this is going to sound really crazy, "that my husband come into the bathroom with me." So for Suzette, it was really quite profound. And she said that, her husband was going to be going away a lot more on business, and the thought of having to spend time alone is really freaking me out, she said. And it turned out Suzette had always had a difficult relationship with being alone. And when she'd been a child, her parents would punish her quite often by leaving the house for hours at a time, just leaving her on her own. So of course she'd come to associate being left like that with feeling extremely anxious. Sometimes she feared they'd left her for good and would never come back. Now consciously, as an adult, she knew that she was safe enough when alone, but her unconscious mind still felt the same way as when she'd been a powerless little girl. So her emotional mind had to catch up with her thinking mind. So what else can cause people to fear being alone? Well, of course, different people have different reasons for fearing to be alone. Maybe like Suzette, being alone has been used as a threat or punishment in childhood, and they come to associate it with feeling very emotional and abandoned. Sometimes people equate being by themselves, even for a short while, with the abandonment word. One woman even told me she felt like she ceased to exist when not around other people. She could only define herself as a human being through her association with other people. Some people have never learned how to enjoy unstructured time by themselves. Many of us use artificial company to mimic a sense of not being alone, like TV, internet, listening to music, and so forth. But for the being alone phobic, it's the reassurance of real company they crave. Getting over the fear of the fear is really what we need to do. And often it's the fear of the fear, the panic that we might panic, that drives people to seek out constant company. The thought of having a panic attack when no one else is around is just too much for some people to bear, or more than they think they can bear, or know that they can bear. And of course, the more fears we have, the less independent we become, and the more we position ourselves to be demanding and needy within our relationships. So the relationship becomes one of carer and cared for. It's no surprise that Suzette's marriage was really suffering. If you fear being alone, then follow these tips to build up your confidence, strengthen your relationships, and enhance your independence. So number 1, wean yourself off constant company. Constantly eating takes the edge off the enjoyment of eating when we do eat. If we're always doing something, the enjoyment fades. But when we eat after we've given ourselves a chance to get a little peckish, the experience of eating means more and is more enjoyable. So too with socializing. When we take time out to be by ourselves, sometimes the quality of interaction when we do see people improves. Yet, like any overwhelming need, craving constant company can start to feel addictive. One young woman I helped overcome her fear of being alone started, at my request, to take walks around the block with her mother. Halfway around the block, she would walk home and her mother would continue the walk. She would wait 5 minutes for her mother, and we increased that time to the point where eventually her mother could go out for days at a time. So we started very small and built it up. Start off small and gently increase your periods of independence time. Take a 15-minute walk and sit in the park. Ask people to leave you for 10 minutes at a time. Bit by bit, you'll find you can increase the time span and thereby increase your confidence, self-reliance, and independence. 2, overcome fear of being alone through distraction. As well as plenty of positive hypnotic rehearsal with Suzette, I also got her to start off small and gradually increase her tolerance for alone time. I asked her what she'd like to do, perhaps something she'd always wanted to do. And she really thought about this. And she told me that she'd always loved Charles Dickens novels, but had only seen them depicted in movies. She wanted to actually start reading his novels and actually immerse herself in that world. I suggested to her that reading was easier when alone because you can avoid interruptions. You don't have to think about anyone else. You become absorbed in the reality of what you're focusing on. After a while, she didn't always have to fill her time when alone or plan what to do ahead of time when she knew her husband would be out of town. But she did read all the great Dickens classics eventually, and pretty soon found she even looked forward sometimes to a bit of solitary refinement. And that reminds me, I also encouraged her to become less black and white in the way she thought about being alone. So tip number 3, be alone sometimes to really make connections. They call us lonely when we're really just alone. So those are lyrics from Oblivious by Aztec Camera, I think from the 1980s. Now, being alone is just a physical description of a temporary state, whereas being lonely describes how we might feel. These are two different things. People can feel connected to other people when they're physically on their own, and at other times feel lonely even when they're in the company of other people. I enjoy my own company sometimes because it gives me a chance to recharge my energy, read, and connect to the thoughts and ideas of writers, some of whom may have been dead for hundreds of years. But when you read, you can still communicate with them in some way. I don't feel alone in these times. I feel connected. If I'm watching a good movie or reading a page-turning thriller, I become involved with the characters and feel connected to them. I don't feel isolated, I feel part of the action. When you dream at night, you may be alone on one level, but if your dreams are vividly populated with other people, you won't feel alone within the dream. The point is, being alone is more a state of mind than anything else. And you can feel really connected even when you're by yourself. I'm certainly not suggesting that we don't need other people, but what I am saying is that an evening on your own now and then can be a time of deep connection in some ways. And that's a point worth thinking about. Suzette found this idea new, startling, and useful. Tip number 4, use hypnosis to rehearse being comfortable when alone. I mentioned that I used hypnosis with Suzette, and it's certainly a great way to rapidly calm down and increase confidence at the prospect and actual experience of taking time alone. So find some space to relax and focus on extending your out-breath a few times to let your body begin to relax. Then, when you have some quiet moments, close your eyes and begin to visualize yourself taking an evening to yourself, alone and relaxed. Notice in your mind watching the kinds of things you can do, or the way you just relax comfortably and look contented and focused and absorbed in what you're doing, if you choose to be doing something. The more you do this, the more you train your mind and body to automatically and naturally start to notice how much calmer you become about being alone sometimes. Step number 5, work on your social life. Like many people who recover from being alone phobia, Suzette discovered that when she became relaxed about spending time on her own, not only did her relationship with her husband dramatically improve, her overall social life did as well. If you're not desperate to be with others, you can start to really enjoy the times when you are. Other people stop feeling pressured to always be around, and because she was enjoying time alone and becoming even more of a Charles Dickens aficionado into the bargain, she really started to love her social life. As you recover from monophobia, make efforts to arrange social events, call friends up, and really enjoy the time you spend with other people. Not as a desperate hunt or a demanding imperative, but as something that you can share and enjoy with them. We can enjoy not eating sometimes when we eat well regularly, and you can enjoy alone time when you've had quality and regular together time. And without all that fear and desperation, you can enjoy yourself confidently. So I hope that gave you some pointers as to what you can do to overcome this, and I hope you found that useful. And if you did, please hit like and subscribe. And if you want to know when my next video is published, hit the notification bell below. I'm Mark Tyrrell of Uncommon Knowledge and hypnosisdownloads.com, and if you'd like to try some of my personal development products, head over to hypnosisdownloads.com and take a look around. And thanks for watching.